Richard, I would love for you to talk about exit strategy, because most founders of franchise systems, especially the ones I know, they start their business. They just think they have so much passion for it. They have no clue how it's going to end, what they're going to do. Are they going to sell it to somebody? Are they going to give it to the kids? They have no idea. So let's get into it and talk about exit strategy mastery and what it's all about.
Well, great question, Frank. And absolutely, there's a lot of statistics going on right now. One thing that struck me is that there's some 12 million baby boomer business owners that are retiring over the next decade, some 10,000 a day. As a matter of fact, over half of all what we call lower middle market businesses, which are businesses up to, let's say, 50 million of revenue, are owned by people 55 and older. And the key there is when you dive underneath that cover, it turns out that only about 30% will ever transition to a family member. It used to be that was a much higher number, but a lot of kids just don't want to go into the same business. And then there's another 20% that'll be sold. What does that mean? It means 50% of all these businesses, of those 12 million businesses, are just going to evaporate. They're going to liquidate. The owner is going to die in the saddle. There's going to be wealth destroyed. And one of the things in my, investment banking work, where we work with so many companies to get liquidity or exit primarily through selling shares to what's called an employee stock ownership plan, but also through M&A transactions when they sell to a third party or to private equity. One of the things that I've noticed over this last 12 years is so many companies just aren't prepared for that process. They leave money on the table, the deal gets delayed, it gets derailed, and they end up with a transaction that may never close. So my former business partner and current business partner, again, Morty Levine, and I were talking about this, and we said, look, we collectively and separately own 22 businesses. We've had multiple successful exits. And to be honest, Morty is, in terms of, leadership, he's the manager leader. So I was always the vision guy, kind of the artist, and he was the manager leader. And when it came time to exit a variety of businesses, we were so well prepared that we got top dollar, we closed on time, and all those kind of things. And so what we've done in this exit strategy mastery, and you go to exitstrategymastery.com, we've got a free book, 14 must-dos to maximize wealth when selling your business. We've also got another book on exploring employee ownership, which is simple and easy to read. And we've just been dumping information on people to get them to kind of wake up and not inadvertently destroy their wealth and their legacy.
Sure. So Richard, since so many of our listeners are emerging franchisors, let's paint the picture that we have an emerging franchisor that's listening. He or she only has 10, 15 franchise locations. They're only in their 30s, maybe early 40s. They're not even thinking exit. But I want to know, why is it important that they're listening to you now? Why is it so important that they think about the end game and the exit?
Well, it's interesting, and I was talking to a mutual friend of ours. I'm saying, look, every business should be thinking about this from the inception. You should be thinking about your exit, yes, even as you're building your empire. And Frank, better than most. For those of you that don't know Frank's background deeply, with his I-9 Sports, he was pound for pound one of the best run small businesses in America. And I deal with dozens and dozens of transactions. And when Frank kindly mentioned the $2 billion in transactions, that's me personally. Our firm, we're a collective of 30 professionals. We've done $25 billion of transactions. And across, my entire career, which is kind of been a CPA 40 years now, that's where I started out. And I worked with so many entrepreneurs and emerging businesses before I became an entrepreneur and built and sold a bunch of my own businesses. I got a lot of experience looking into the door, and Frank crushed it. His management team, his financial statements, his processes, his key performance indicators, all those things that are necessary to just hit the ball, and build value. And what's fascinating about the franchise space is franchisors rarely come to market. The franchisees come to market, and in order for a franchisee to sell, well, they're always going to need permission from the franchisor, but that's a separate discussion. But if you're able to build a thriving franchisor organization, you are going to command top dollar in the marketplace. But along the way, you want to pay attention to certain things. You want to make sure that your financial statements have integrity. Once you get to a certain size, you should invest at least in annual reviews, have your CPA review your financial statements, because eventually if that either the bank or some third party is kicking the tires to buy you, if your financial statements have integrity, you're not going to take a haircut right out the gate in negotiations. But it really was a joy. I mean, Frank, it was about 8 years ago that we first started working together, and you've just knocked the ball out of the park. And I'm so pleased that you're stepping up and sharing your information for the next generation.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.